I still wake up some nights staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how everything unraveled so quickly. One moment I was a woman preparing to marry the man I loved. The next, I was gone, disappeared without a trace, leaving behind the life I thought we were building together. His name was Austin. From the moment I met him, I was convinced he was different. He had this way of making me feel like I was the only woman in the world. But that illusion shattered at 4:30 in the morning on a Tuesday, not with a scream, but with a silent notification. The iPad on his nightstand lit up, a sync error from his smartwatch. It was not tracking deep REM sleep at a silent meditation retreat in the mountains. It was logging a heart rate of 140 beats per minute and a GPS location in the warehouse district downtown. Drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now. I would love to know who is part of our community. The condo was silent. It was a showroom silence, the kind that costs a fortune to maintain: white marble, gray velvet, surfaces so clean they felt hostile. I sat at the kitchen island, the cold quartz pressing against my forearms, and looked at the iPad screen. The map pin pulsed rhythmically, a tiny digital heartbeat mocking the stillness of my home. The Foundry. I knew the place. It was not a retreat center. It was a cavernous warehouse district club, known for after-hours raves, illicit substances, and the kind of bass that rattles your ribcage. 24 hours ago, I had packed his bag. I had folded his organic cotton sweatpants. I had bought him the specific brand of chamomile tea he said helped him sleep. I remembered the way he had sighed, rubbing his temples, performing the role of the overwhelmed entrepreneur perfectly. He told me the wedding planning was suffocating him. He said he needed 48 hours of absolute silence to center himself so he could be the husband I deserved. I had kissed his forehead. I had felt guilty for asking him to pick a napkin color. I had apologized for being too demanding. I looked back at the screen. Heart rate, 145. He was not meditating. He was high, or dancing, or both. He was raging 14 days before our vows. For the last 6 months, I had been living in a state of constant, low-grade vibration. I thought it was stress. I thought it was pre-wedding jitters. Austin called it paranoia. Every time I asked who was texting him at midnight, or why his location services were turned off, he would look at me with this pitying softness. He would tell me I was sabotaging us. He would say my anxiety was a third person in our relationship, suffocating the love he was trying to give. He suggested I see a therapist to manage my insecurity. I actually went. I paid a stranger $200 an hour to help me fix a brain that was not broken. But looking at that blue dot on the map, the difference finally clicked into place. I realized I had spent half a year confusing anxiety with intuition. They feel similar, but they are different species. Anxiety is loud. It screams in your ear, chaotic and frantic, asking a million what-ifs. It knocks over furniture in your mind, terrified of things that have not happened yet. Intuition is different. Intuition does not scream. It is terrifyingly quiet. It sits in the corner of the room, perfectly still, and whispers a single statement of fact. It does not ask what if. It says, I know. That feeling I had carried was not insecurity. It was information my body had processed before my brain was ready to accept it. Austin's accusations, his gaslighting, his gentle suggestions that I was the problem, that was the invisible chain he used to keep me tethered to him. He knew that as long as I was busy fighting my own mind, I would not have the energy to fight him. He had weaponized my own self-awareness against me, but the chain had just snapped. The silence in my head was not peaceful. It was the silence of a judge who has seen enough evidence to deliver a verdict. I did not feel sad. I did not feel the urge to weep over the herbal tea I had packed, or the vows we had written. I felt a cold, sharp click in my chest. The man I loved was a fiction. The man at the Foundry was a stranger. And I was not a bride anymore. I was an architect, looking at a building that had just been condemned. Tears would not fix a structural failure. Only a sledgehammer could do that. In my line of work, when a foundation is compromised, you do not patch the cracks and hope for the best. You bring the whole thing down before it collapses on top of you. I did not waste energy on grief. I channeled it into logistics. I walked to the living room and woke my laptop. The screen glowed, illuminating the spreadsheet I had spent 5 months perfecting, Project Forever. The title mocked me in bold, sans serif font. Color-coded tabs for floral arrangements, seating charts, and catering menus. It was not a celebration anymore. It was a ledger of bad investments. $65,000 in contracts, 200 guests, 14 days on the clock. I cracked my knuckles and started typing. I did not write emotional letters. I did not plead for sympathy. I wrote business memos. I started with the biggest liability, the venue. The deposit was non-refundable within 30 days of the event, strictly enforced. But contracts have loopholes. And I knew how to find them. I drafted a new email to the event coordinator. Subject, immediate cancellation, contract number 4920. I typed with a rhythm that felt like drumming. Please accept this formal notice of cancellation for the wedding scheduled on the 14th. While the contract states deposits are non-refundable, I am attaching documentation regarding the groom's unavailability due to unforeseen circumstances. This was the beautiful part. I did not send a sob story. I took a screenshot of the GPS log showing Austin at the foundry at 4 in the morning. I took a screenshot of his heart rate graph, spiking like a jagged mountain range. I attached them as a PDF file labeled Force Majeure. It was a gamble, framing his infidelity as an act of God, or at least an act of total incapacity. But it felt satisfyingly petty. I was not just leaving him, I was building a case file. I moved down the list. The caterer, the florist, the DJ, copy, paste, attach evidence, send. With every click of the send button, I felt a physical weight lift off my shoulders. It was the reverse of building. I was unmaking our future. Brick by brick. The shrimp cocktail appetizers, cancelled. The string quartet for the processional, gone. The vintage getaway car, deleted. I watched the sent folder fill up. It took me exactly 18 minutes to dismantle a year of planning. I sat back in the ergonomic chair, the silence of the condo humming around me. Most women would be hyperventilating right now. They would be staring at the ruin of their dreams. But I did not see ruin. I saw a clean site. I saw a lot that had been cleared of debris, ready for something new, something that would not rot from the inside out. I closed the spreadsheet without saving. The demolition was complete. Now, I just had to make sure I was not in the blast radius when the dust settled. The digital demolition was done. Now came the physical extraction. I walked into the bedroom, the plush carpet swallowing the sound of my footsteps. I did not grab the big luggage set we had bought for the honeymoon in Bora Bora. I reached for my weekender bag, the one I used for site visits. It was small, practical, and designed for efficiency. I packed with the same economy of motion I used on a job site: 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, my laptop charger, the external hard drive with my portfolio. I did not take the cashmere throw he bought me for Christmas. I did not take the jewelry. I looked at the closet, filled with the color-coordinated evidence of our life together, and felt absolutely nothing. It was just inventory in a store I was never returning to. My phone buzzed against the marble nightstand, a sharp vibration that cut through the silence. It was not Austin. It was Linda, his mother. I stared at the screen. The preview message popped up, oblivious and demanding. Morning, Alyssa. Just a reminder to send over the final seating chart for the rehearsal dinner by noon. And please, let us try to fix your tone with the florist. We do not want bad energy. I did not unlock the phone. I just watched the text sit there, glowing with toxic entitlement. Then, a second bubble appeared. Also, make sure Austin gets his rest at this retreat. No texting him. We need him fresh for the photos. Those dark circles under his eyes in the engagement shoot were a nightmare to retouch. I let out a short, dry laugh. It echoed in the empty room. There it was, the architecture of the entire family dysfunction condensed into 2 blue bubbles. She did not ask if he was okay. She did not ask if I was okay. She was worried about the retouching bill. She was worried about the aesthetic of her son, the prop. Linda thought her golden boy was sitting in a lotus position on a mountain, centering his chakra. In reality, he was likely stumbling out of a warehouse in the industrial district, pupils dilated, sweat drying on his skin. And she was lecturing me about bad energy. For years, I had made excuses for her. I told myself she was just protective. I told myself she was just a perfectionist. But looking at that text, the realization hit me with the force of a wrecking ball. I was not just divorcing a man, I was escaping a cult of image, a cult where reality was just an inconvenience that needed to be photoshopped out. If I stayed, this would be the rest of my life. Managing Austin's lies, while managing Linda's expectations. I would be the PR manager for their family dysfunction, constantly smoothing over the cracks so they could look pretty for the Christmas card. I would be trapped in a permanent state of damage control, apologizing for things I did not do, fixing messes I did not make, all while being told to watch my tone. I did not reply. I did not tell her that her son was not resting. I did not tell her the florist had just received a cancellation notice. I did not want to give her the courtesy of a warning. I dropped the phone into my bag. Linda wanted fresh photos. She was about to get a candid snapshot of reality she could not retouch. 5:30 in the morning. The city outside was still gray, suspended in that heavy quiet before the first commute. I dialed Alexis. She picked up on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep but instantly alert, a reflex honed by 3 years in contract law. I did not waste time with pleasantries. I gave her the headlines. The foundry, the heart rate data, the lies. She did not ask if I was sure. She did not ask if we could work it out. She said 3 words: move the money. I hung up and logged into our joint banking app. The screen loaded, bright and cheerful, displaying the balance of the account we had nicknamed the future. It held the down payment for a house and the remaining budget for the wedding. It was a substantial number, a testament to 2 years of saving, bonuses, and skipped vacations. I opened the calculator app on my phone. I did not act out of anger. Anger makes you sloppy. Anger makes you take too much, which gives them leverage to call you a thief. I was precise. I calculated the exact total of every deposit I had made. I added the reimbursement for the vendor retainers I had paid from my personal credit card. I subtracted 50% of the joint interest accrued. I initiated the transfer. $42,850 moved from the future back to Alyssa's savings. I left his share exactly as it was. Well, minus the cancellation fees that would hit in a few business days. He could pay for the wreckage of the party he decided to skip. I watched the confirmation wheel spin. Success. I sat there, in the dim light of the laptop, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. This was the moment where most people would hesitate. This was the moment where the urge to scream, to wake him up, to demand an explanation would become overwhelming. I looked at the bedroom door. He was in there, sleeping off the drugs and the adrenaline, probably dreaming he had gotten away with it. I could walk in there. I could throw the iPad at his chest. I could scream until my throat bled. I could watch him panic, watch him cry, watch him spin the elaborate web of excuses I knew he had ready. He would blame the stress. He would blame peer pressure. He would blame me for not being fun enough. And that was exactly why I was not going to do it. I realized then that closure is a myth we sell ourselves to justify one last hit of the addiction. Confronting a liar does not give you peace. It gives them a stage. It gives them data. If I screamed, he would learn exactly what hurt me, and he would use that to calibrate his next lie. He would turn my pain into a performance, making himself the victim of my instability. He would feed on my emotion until I was empty, and he was full. The only way to win against a black hole is to remove the star. You do not fight it. You starve it. I was not running away because I was weak. I was executing a surgical exit. By denying him the confrontation, I was denying him the chance to manipulate the narrative. I was taking away his ability to gaslight me one last time. Silence was not a retreat. It was the loudest weapon I had. It was a mirror. When he woke up, he would not see me, or my anger, or my tears. He would just see himself. And the empty space where I used to be. I closed the laptop. The money was safe. The logic was sound. It was time to drop the bomb. The sun began to bleed through the sheer curtains, turning the gray room a bruised shade of purple. It was the time of morning usually reserved for garbage trucks and joggers, the time when the city tries to scrub itself clean before the day starts. I stood by the nightstand, looking down at the sleeping form of the man I had planned to spend the next 50 years with. He was sprawled on his stomach, mouth slightly open, a line of drool pooling on the expensive pillowcase. He did not look like a villain. He did not look like a monster. He just looked like a boy who had stayed up too late playing games he was not smart enough to win. I slid the engagement ring off my finger. It left a pale indentation on my skin, a ghost of a shackle. I did not want to leave it on the counter, where he might knock it over in his hungover stumble. I wanted to make a statement. I picked up the glass of water he kept by the bed, the hydration he would desperately need in a few hours. I held the ring over the water. Plink. It hit the bottom with a soft clink, magnifying through the liquid, distorted and drowning. It was a perfect aquarium for a dead relationship. I returned to the kitchen island for the final act. Moving the money was survival. Canceling the vendors was logistics. But this was the kill shot. This was the difference between a breakup and a revolution. I opened the guest list tab on the spreadsheet. 212 email addresses. His venture capital partners, his college fraternity brothers, his judgmental aunts, my cousins, the entire ecosystem of our social lives. If I just left, Austin would control the story. He would wake up, panic, and spin the narrative. He would tell everyone I had a mental break. He would tell them I got cold feet. He would tell his mother I was unstable. And she would tell the world. By noon, I would be the villain in a tragedy of his making. I was not going to let him hold the pen. I opened a new email draft. I pasted the entire BCC list. Subject: important update regarding the wedding of Alyssa and Austin. I did not write a novel. I did not attach a tear-stained letter. I wrote a press release. Dear friends and family, please be advised that the wedding scheduled for the 14th is officially canceled. This decision follows the groom's choice to spend this weekend attending a rave at the Foundry rather than the meditation retreat he claimed to be at. Please direct all questions regarding his location and activities to Austin directly. Regards, Alyssa. I read it over. It was cold. It was factual. It was lethal. It did not ask for pity. It demanded accountability. I attached the screenshot of the GPS log, just in case anyone wanted to debate the timeline. My cursor hovered over the send button. Sending it now would be a mistake. He might wake up to the notification buzzing. He might try to intercept it. He might delete it from the server, if he was fast enough. I checked the time. It was 6:15. Austin never woke up before 10, after a bender. He would be groggy until 11. I clicked the arrow next to send. Schedule, send. I scrolled the time wheel. 11 in the morning. I clicked, confirm. A small banner appeared at the bottom of the screen, message scheduled. It was a time bomb. A digital explosive set to detonate exactly when his hangover would be hitting its peak. He would wake up, reach for his phone to check his Instagram, and realize that his entire world had been incinerated while he slept. He would not just be waking up to an empty apartment. He would be waking up to a public relations nightmare. I closed the laptop. I put it in my bag. I zipped it shut. The narrative was set. The evidence was locked. The exit was clear. I did not watch the explosion. I was already 90 miles away, driving a rented sedan down the coast highway, the ocean blurring gray and steel on my left. I had left my key on the granite counter next to the half-empty glass of water. I had walked out the door without looking back, but I did not need to see it to know exactly what was happening. At 11 o'clock, my phone vibrated in the cup holder. A notification from my email app. Message sent successfully. In my mind, I could see the scene play out like a film I had directed. The email landing in 200 inboxes simultaneously. The collective confusion turning into shock. The screenshot of the GPS log loading on screens across the country. At the condo, Austin would be stirring. The sun would be hitting his face. A headache pounding behind his eyes. He would reach for his phone, expecting a text from me, asking how the retreat was going. Maybe he would even text me first. Something charming and fake like, just finished morning meditation. Feeling centered. But that text would never send, because his notifications would already be flooded. First, his mother. Linda would call. She would not be worried, she would be furious. She would be screaming about the email, about the humiliation, about how I had ruined everything. She would demand he fix it. Then, his best man. Then, his business partner. Austin would sit up, confused, the room spinning. He would call my name. He would walk into the living room, expecting to find me making coffee. Instead, he would find the silence. He would see the empty closet. He would see the ring drowning in the glass of water. And then, he would check his email. He would see what I had done. He would realize that while he was sleeping off a high, I had systematically dismantled his reputation. I had not just left him. I had exposed him. I had taken the one thing he valued more than me, more than us, more than honesty, his image. He could not spin this. He could not tell people I was crazy. He could not say I got cold feet. The evidence was in their inboxes. The heart rate monitor, the location data, the timestamps. It was irrefutable. I had stripped him of his ability to lie. For the first time in our relationship, he was powerless. He was waking up in the wreckage of a life he thought he could cheat, only to find that the game was over, and he had lost everything. My phone buzzed again. And again. And again. Austin calling. Austin calling. Linda calling. I did not decline them. I let them ring. I wanted him to hear the silence. I wanted him to feel the void where I used to be. I wanted him to understand that he could scream as loud as he wanted, but I was gone, and I was not coming back. The shame he was feeling right now? That was his problem. The embarrassment? His problem. The $65,000 wedding that was now just a collection of cancellation fees? His problem. I turned the radio up. The road stretched out ahead of me, long and open. For the first time in 6 months, my chest did not hurt. The knot of anxiety was gone. I took a deep breath, tasting the salt air coming through the vents. He was waking up to a nightmare. I was finally waking up to my life. The gravel crunched under my tires. As I pulled into the driveway of the converted barn, my mother called home. It was 2 hours and a lifetime away from the city. The air here did not smell like exhaust and expensive cologne. It smelled like salt water, turpentine, and old coffee. I walked up the wooden steps, my boots sounding heavy on the warped planks. The door was not locked. It never was. I pushed it open and stepped into the chaos. Canvases were stacked against every wall. Jars of brushes sat on tables stained with 1,000 different colors. It was messy. It was cluttered. It was the complete opposite of the white, sterile museum I had been living in for 3 years. My mother, Laura, was standing at her easel, a smudge of cobalt blue on her cheek. She turned, saw me standing there with my weekender bag, and did not say a word. She did not ask where Austin was. She did not ask why I was not at my final dress fitting. She just wiped her hands on a rag, walked over, and pulled me into a hug that smelled like linseed oil and safety. She made tea in mugs that did not match. One was chipped. One had a handle that had been glued back on. We sat on her velvet sofa, the stuffing poking out of the armrest, and I finally let go. I did not cry, because I missed him. I cried because I was exhausted from holding my breath. I had spent so long trying to be the perfect fiancé, trying to fit into a life that was designed to look good rather than feel good. I told her everything. The rave, the gaslighting, the email I had sent. She listened, blowing on her tea. When I finished, she did not offer platitudes. She looked around the messy studio, and then looked me dead in the eye. You know why you are exhausted, Alyssa? Because you were trying to build a marble palace on a sinkhole. You cannot polish a lie until it becomes the truth. You just end up with a shiny lie. She gestured to the room. Look at this place. It is a disaster. But it is honest. I would rather live in a tent that stands on solid ground than a mansion that is hiding a rot in the foundation. You did not lose a future today. You just woke up from a dream that was turning into a nightmare. That was the moment the last knot in my chest loosened. I realized I had been equating perfection with worthiness. I thought if I curated the perfect life, the perfect wedding, the perfect image, I would be safe. But safety is not in perfection. Safety is in the truth, no matter how jagged it is. 3 days later, I turned my phone back on. The screen flooded with notifications. Hundreds of missed calls. A voicemail from Austin. Time-stamped at noon that first day. I listened to the first 3 seconds, him crying, blaming the stress, begging me to call him back. I did not listen to the rest. I pressed delete. I went to his contact. Block. I went to Linda's contact. Block. I opened my laptop one last time. I found the Project Forever spreadsheet. I did not archive it. I dragged the file to the trash and emptied the bin. I looked down at the mug in my hand. It was ceramic, handmade, slightly lopsided, with a chip on the rim. It was not perfect. It would not make it into a bridal magazine, but the tea inside was hot, and for the first time in years, it tasted real. I was not running anymore. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. If you have ever had to choose between a painful truth and a comfortable lie, share your story in the comments. And if this story helped you see your own worth, hit that follow button. We are building something real here.